Hello. So this is lecture 4 of series special relativity, and today's topic is time dilation. Okay. So starting with the topic. So today we are going to understand the point that clocks do not run at the same rate, which means that if we have two observers and each observer is carrying his or her own clock and they are moving relative to each other, then their clocks do not agree or their clocks do not run at the same rate. So let us understand this concept in more detail. To understand anything in the context of special theory of relativity, it is always simple if we divide the example in a set of two events. So here we are comparing the clocks. So let us divide the functioning of clock into a set of two events. So I define the event 1 as the time when clock says tick, and the event 2 when the clock says talk. Okay, so we have two events. Event 1 the clock says tick, and event 2 the clock says talk. Okay, so now as we are comparing the observations, we need two frames of reference. Therefore, as usual, we have a S frame of reference and S prime frame of reference. Okay, so this S prime frame of reference is moving to the right with relative velocity u with respect to S along the x direction. Okay, so again I am in S frame and you are in S prime frame. Okay, so the time difference between the tick and the talk in my frame, I say it is del t, which is equal to t naught. Let us say that it is the time period of the clock. Okay, the time difference between tick and talk, let us say that it is the time period of clock. Therefore, in my frame of reference, I define that time period as t naught. Now let us see what the time period comes out to be in your frame of reference. So in your frame of reference, the time period comes out to be as follows, which is given by the Lorentz transformation for the time differences. The time period del t prime in your frame of reference is nothing but, this is time period again in your frame of reference, is nothing but del t minus u del x by c square over under root 1 minus u square by c square. So if you don't know about this formula, you can get the information about it in the lecture 2 of special theory of relativity series. I'll post the link in the description. So now in this formula, I substitute del is equal to 0. The reason being, I am holding the clock and I am holding the clock and I am stationary, which means that the clock is also stationary. Therefore, the distance traveled by the clock is 0. And therefore, we have del t prime, which is the time period in your frame of reference, to be as follows. So, del t prime is equal to t naught over under root 1 minus u square over c square. And let us define this del t prime as t naught prime, which is the time period in your frame of reference, that is S prime frame. Okay. Now, if we take a look at this factor in the denominator, under root 1 minus u square over c square, this factor is less than 1, and therefore I get t naught prime is greater than t naught, which means that I can say that the time period of your clock is more than time period of my clock, and therefore I can claim that your clock is running slower than my clock, just because the time period of your clock is greater than the time period of my clock. Similarly, if we see this thing from your perspective, you might say that you are stationary and I am moving to the left. It's simple. If you are moving to the right with respect to me, obviously I am moving to the left with respect to you, and therefore you can say that from your perspective you are stationary and I am moving with relative velocity minus u. So let's see what happens. Now, in your frame of reference, I can write the Lorentz transformation as del t, which is in my frame of reference, del t prime in your frame of reference, and del x prime in your frame of reference. So again, del x prime is equal to 0 because in your frame of reference, in your perspective, you are stationary. Therefore, del x prime is equal to 0, and we get del t is equal to del t prime over under root 1 minus u square over c square. And this del t, as I initially defined, let it be t naught and del t prime be t naught prime. Therefore, the again over here we get that T naught is greater than T naught prime. So, if we see the thing from your perspective, you can also say that the time period of my clock is greater than the time period of your clock, and therefore you can claim that my clock is running slower than your clock. Thus, two observers which are moving relative to each other can both claim the other's clock to be moving slow. Moving slow means the time period is more and therefore the clock is slowed down. Okay. Thus both the observers can claim this when they are moving relative to each other. Now let us understand this slowing down of the clock by considering a thought experiment. It will be more useful to consider to understand how basically this slowing down of clock happens. Okay. So now if we consider over here the complicated clocks like our wrist clock or the clocks which we hang on the wall, it will be very difficult to explain because we'll have to consider the mechanisms and all, and it becomes very tedious. So to explain this concept, we'll consider simple clock. So the simple clock is as follows. I have drawn the diagram over here. So there are two mirrors. This is the first mirror and this is the second mirror. Okay. So now this first mirror and the second mirror, they both have a light beam in between them. The light beam starts from mirror 2, starts from mirror 1, goes to mirror 2, bounces back and reaches mirror 1. So when the light from the mirror, the light started from mirror 1, we say tick, and when the light reaches the mirror 1 again, we say it is tock. Okay. And as we know that we have defined the difference between this tick and tock to be T naught, that is the time period of the clock. So now this T naught can be written as 2L by C because the distance travelled by the light is L upwards, L downwards, therefore 2L, and the speed of the light beam is C, which is a constant. Okay. Now if I observe your clock, you also have the same clock which works on the same mechanism of two mirrors and the light beam. Now let us see how do I see your clock. Okay. So you are moving to the right. Okay. The S prime frame is moving to the right with velocity u. Therefore, I see your clock doing this funny thing. The light beam starts at C. It goes to A, and at A it bounces back and reaches D over here. Okay. So this path CAD is the path that I see the light beam takes in your frame. Okay. So now obviously we can see over here that this path AC, the path AC is greater than AB because AC is the hypotenuse of the triangle, and therefore the path travelled by the light beam is greater than the path travelled in my clock. So obviously this CAD is greater than 2AB, and therefore the time period that I see of your clock is something greater than 2L divided by C. Therefore time period of clock increases and thus it slows down. Now let us calculate by how much this time period differs. Let us do some detailed calculations. Now when I see your clock, the light beam starts at A, it reaches B, and then bounces back at B from B and reaches C. Okay. So this path ABC has happened during the time period in your frame, that is T. Let us say that the time is T. Okay. Let's use T prime because we have used T prime over there. Okay. Or let us say T only. Let us say T. We'll further use T prime. Let us substitute T prime. Okay. So in this time T, your train, as it is moving with velocity u, it has travelled a distance ut. Therefore the distance AC is ut. Okay. Now we can see that AB is equal to BC because they are the hypotenuse and they are equal, and AB is nothing but under root L square plus U square T square by 4 because this distance AO is UT by 2. Those two are symmetric triangles. Okay. Now, this t is 2 times the distance L prime divided by c, and L prime is nothing but this. This is L prime, the hypotenuse, and it's 2 times because it's AB plus BC and they both are equal. Okay. So we have t over here as 2 into under root L square plus U square t square by 4 over c, and in this place of L, we can substitute L is equal to C T naught by 2. This is by using this relation. Okay. Now substituting that, we get this equation, and further rearranging, we get this t, that is the time period of the clock as IC, of your clock as IC, to be equal to T naught over under root 1 minus U square by C square. Okay. So the time period of your clock as IC, that is T prime, comes out to be T naught over under root 1 minus U square by C square, and again this denominator is less than 1, therefore T prime is greater than T naught, and it is same as we have calculated from the Lorentz transformation relations. So thus we have proved over here that if the clocks are moving, they have to slow down. So we explained this time dilation concept using a simple clock that we designed. But what about other clocks? How do we explain the slowing down of those clocks? What is the mechanism behind the slowing down of those clocks? Let us study. So what about other clocks? Okay. So we have a normal clock. I'll write it as NC. Now this normal clock is a clock which you can say is a wristwatch that the person has on his wrist, or it's a clock in the train, some clock in the train, and the same person on the train also has this simple clock which we designed. Okay, this simple clock. Now if that person compares the time period of these two clocks, of the normal clock and of the simple clock, and if he finds out that the simple clock is slowed down but the normal clock is not slowed down. So if there is a disagreement between the measurements from the normal clock and the simple clock, then he can find out, or he can say that something funny is happening with me, that the two clocks are not running properly, and this might give him a hint that he is moving. But he is in a train which is moving with a constant velocity u, that is an inertial frame, and in inertial frames we cannot detect our velocity. Therefore, for the person who is in the train, for him to not detect his velocity, this normal clock has to run at the same rate as the simple clock. Therefore, whatever the mechanisms may be of the clocks, they have to slow down if the clocks are moving. Okay. Now let us consider a special clock. So this special clock is nothing but, I say, biological clock. So what do I mean by this biological clock is us. We are also a clock. Our aging process is same as like that of the clock. So when all the clocks are slowing down, obviously this biological clocks also have to slow down, and thus the aging process also slows down if we are moving. So a person who is in the rocket, and if he is moving at tremendous speed, obviously his aging process will be slowed down, which means that if there are two persons, one is on the earth and another is in the rocket, and the rocket is moving at tremendous speed, the person who is on the earth will see that the person who is in the rocket is aging very slowly as compared to him. Okay. So this is the concept of time dilation. This comparison between two observations of the person who is on the earth and the person who is in the rocket gives rise to a new paradox, which is called as a twin paradox. It is called as twin paradox. We'll not discuss it today. We'll discuss it after 2 lectures maybe. So this twin paradox, we'll discuss it later. Okay. Now I have been talking about this time dilation now. So we have used the thought experiment to explain it, but there is also a proof for it. So the proof can be found in the subatomic particles, that is muons. This muons, they have a very small lifetime, which is about 1 microsecond, a very small lifetime, and they are created at the extreme heights in the atmosphere, and those heights are like 15,000 meters. So they are created at very large heights, but then too they are found on the surface of the earth. So how is it possible? Because for them to be found on the surface of earth, they have to travel through the whole atmosphere and reach to the surface of earth. So how does it happen? Let us see. Now let us do some calculations to bring out some numbers and compare them. So the muons can travel the largest distance if they are moving obviously with the fastest speed, and the fastest speed possible is nothing but the speed of light. So we take their speed as c, and the distance traveled by them is in their whole lifetime is given by c tau, because tau is the lifetime, and where c is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters per second and tau is 10 to power minus 6 seconds. If we do the calculations, we get that the distance traveled by the muons in their whole lifetime, if they are moving at the speed of light, is only 300 meters. But if they have to reach the surface of earth, they have to travel 15,000 meters. So obviously, even if the muons travel at speed of light, they can't reach the surface of earth. Then how they are found on the surface of earth? So when we are observing the muons, obviously they are moving with tremendous speeds, and if they are moving, their aging clock has to slow down and they can live longer, okay, as their biological. I can't say biological over here because there is nothing biological about muons. The aging clocks of the muon slows down, okay, and this is how they travel this tremendous distance of the atmosphere and reach the surface of the earth, okay. So this is how the muons reach the surface of the earth. But there is again a question: what happens in the frame of reference of muons? So in frame of reference of muons, obviously their lifetime is only 10 to power minus 6 seconds. They won't live longer in their own frame of reference because they'll consider themselves to be at rest. So if they are moving at this tremendous speed and they have this shorter lifetime, but then too they are found in the surface of earth in their own frame of reference, the explanation for this is nothing but length contraction. So what this length contraction is: when the muons are descending in the atmosphere, then the length of the atmosphere which they have to travel is contracted, means it's shortened, it's contracted, and thus in this small lifetime period they can travel this contracted distance now, which is obviously very much less than 15,000 meter, and thus they can reach the surface of the earth, okay. So the concept of this length contraction will be studied in detail in the next lecture, and this was all about time dilation. Thank you.